In my previous video, I built the basic shell for a model of this abandoned Japanese building that once housed some shops. In this video, I'm going to scratch build the windows and doors that are a prominent feature of the building. This is Pacific Coast Miniatures. I'm Mark. Let's get started. First off, there are these interesting shutters that are on the second floor windows. Actually, I believe these are just the coverings and the shutters slide out from the inside over the windows. Either way, these just take a few pieces of Sintra and then adding some very thin strips of styrene. And here they are. Next are the actual windows on the second floor. These look in the photo to be boarded up or covered on the inside with something black, so that's easy. I used my airbrush to paint the backs of two pieces of clear styrene. I then proceeded to use a couple of sizes of styrene strips to make the outer frame, and then the internal window frames. I used some strips that I pre-painted with a brick red brown paint. And then I discovered that the windows are not boarded up on the inside but the outside. In my own photo and the photos on Google Streetview, there's no reflection in the windows from any glass. So I took the clear styrene off. With unfortunately some damage to the frames that I first had to fix. I then did some painting of the frames, including some dry brushing and some washes to show their age. I might do some more touch-ups later. I then re-glued the styrene backings on, but this time facing the other way. I then used the printout to determine where the windows would go. Then the windows and shutters were glued into place. The shutters will get the same paint treatment as the rest of the building, so they stay white for now. Next is the more difficult task of scratch building these aluminum sliding doors on the shop on the left. Following a properly scaled printout was the easiest way to avoid having to measure everything. I cut some styrene strips, glued them together, I also made the top and right frames from strip styrene. painted them silver. Added some clear styrene to the backs for the glass. And glued the two sets of doors together to make them look like they can slide past each other. Then everything was glued into place. I had to make the opening span the full length of the left side so the frame would sit flush with the building side. The next task was to glue on a printed out version of the planking above the door, and I also made a trim piece from very thin styrene, painted with a base coat of brown. Onto the boarded up door on the right. At first I had the idea to actually make this out of balsa wood, and did create the boards and tried to paint them, but I wasn't happy with the result. So in order to provide better realism, I decided to take the print out of the door and glue it onto the existing door. There is though this area that is damaged in the middle, so I cut out the wood to reveal the backing, which is sheet styrene painted silver. This will be weathered a bit later. Back to the aluminum door. I actually did make the curtains and wood bars that you see in this photo from strip wood and tissue, but the result wasn't to my liking again, so I decided to go the simple route with the photo I printed. By the way, I got this detailed photo from Google Streetview, ended up grabbing an older photo where the lighting was better and there was minimal reflection from passing cars. Then I manipulated it in GIMP, a free image editor, to fix the perspective. The resulting photo was mounted on thin styrene and then glued behind the door. Now onto the right side. I again used a printout of the actual building from Street View as a guide. Using various pieces of styrene, I scratch built both sliding doors. In hindsight, don't do what I did and paint the styrene first. I had problems gluing them together and had to scrape off the paint. These then got a fresh coat of paint. I glued on some clear styrene for the glass. With the other door built the same way, I glued the two doors together, just like with the aluminum door on the left-hand side. I measured for the door, because I need to cut a hole again in the centra to make the door fit properly. As with the left side, I also added the printout of the wood planking above the doors and windows, as well as a strip styrene trim. The shutters you see on both sides might get some extra treatment to make them look more 3D. I'll cover that when I add details such as the lights above the doors, wires, and other things. I used my new razor saw to cut the cintra out, which was a lot easier than trying to cut it with just the hobby knife. I mounted the door on the one piece of cintra that I had painted black, that I originally was going to use for the left side, and the door just fit perfectly on it, and then the cintra was glued behind. The windows on either side of the door were added. Again, the printout, and then over top of that a piece of clear styrene to act as the glass. And finally some thin strip styrene trim that I had pre-painted brown. So that completes part 2 of the build, which took longer than I thought. Now on to texturing and painting the walls. That will be the next video of this series. So be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified when the next build videos come out. Thanks for watching.